This is ApplePly, not applewood. It doesn't come from the apple tree. What it is the highest quality plywood I've found in my 50 years of woodworking. If you want to make kids' furniture, shop furniture, or fixtures, you need to know about this amazing product. So in this video, I'll break it down for you, showing you just why it's so good. ApplePly is essentially the same product as Baltic birch plywood. But Baltic birch plywood can't be bought in the United States today. That's because Baltic birch is made in the Baltic region of Europe, which is essentially Russia and Ukraine. And because of the conflict going on over there, it cannot be imported to the United States. However, if we buy ApplePly, we're essentially buying the same product. So anytime you hear Baltic birch being referred to as a woodworking material to be used, just substitute ApplePly. ApplePly is made here in the United States, in the state of Washington. And because it's made here in the United States, it's not only less expensive than buying it from Europe, but it's also more readily available. The name ApplePly is kind of a play on words. Now, Washington State is known for apples. Takeoff of apple pie. In other words, kind of like it's as American as apple pie. And that's what the joke is behind the name. Okay, now some people mistake this of thinking it's made of applewood. It's not. It's made of birch, just like Baltic birches. However, even though it's made of birch, the face veneer can be made of other types of wood. You can find ApplePly made with all of the common domestic hardwoods available. So you could have a cherry face on it, you could have a maple face on it, you could have a walnut face on it, depending on what you're trying to use it for. So it's a very versatile wood. Now, so why would we want to use this? Well, to really understand it, we have to compare it to regular plywood. Now, I've got right here 2 pieces of 1/2-inch plywood. This is ApplePly, and this is just regular, probably BC grade, maybe construction plywood, okay? This is made of pine, this is made of birch. Now, when we look at it, the most notable difference between the two is the fact that there's many more plies in the ApplePly than there are in the standard plywood that you would pick up at your local lumberyard or home improvement center. This particular piece has only 3 plies, which is really, really low, okay? And as we all know, 1/2-inch plywood isn't 1/2 inch. It's about a 32nd of an inch less than that. Now, this piece of ApplePly, it's also a little less than the full 1/2-inch thick, but not as much, okay? It's about 15 thousandths smaller. So it's like, instead of a 32nd smaller, it's about a 64th smaller. But this has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 veneers, 9 layers. And the face veneers are just about as thick as the core veneers, okay? So if this was, say, walnut faced, we would find that it would have a fairly heavy walnut face, unlike most hardwood plywood, which would have a very, very thin veneer face on it, and it would have a softwood core. Now, birch isn't a real hardwood, okay? It is a little bit harder than pine, but it's not like buying oak or maple or walnut. It's somewhere around 11 or 1200 on the Janka scale. So it's not a real hard wood. Nevertheless, it is harder, okay? But the addition of all those extra layers, all those extra plies in the manufacture of it makes a much more stable wood. Now, plywoods tend to be stable to start with, okay? But adding those extra layers makes it even more stable. It also means it comes out of the mill much flatter. Now, we've all seen, we go into our local Home Depot or wherever, and we see plywood there on the rack, and the sheets are bowed. We buy those sheets, we bring them home to our workshop, and yes, they're still bowed. They aren't absolutely flat. Okay, I've got a piece of 1/2-inch plywood here, and this is just a small. This is about 2 by 2.5 feet, and there's just a slight bow in it. I can see it pressed down. I can feel it pressed down in the middle as I press on it. On the other hand, this piece of ApplePly that's sitting below it, which is slightly larger, but the same thickness, is dead flat. It sits absolutely flat on my workbench top. So that's a big advantage with it. The second big advantage we have with it is there's basically no voids. Now, anyone that's working with plywood to make children's furniture, shop furniture, a toy box, whatever, gets frustrated with the fact that it's got voids in it. There's a couple problems that causes this. Number one is those voids tend to end up being right where you need to put a fastener in, and so you can't fasten it together well. Secondly, the voids in the edge look very unsightly, and that means that the edge of the plywood has to be filled with something, then sanded before you can finish it. Whereas with ApplePly, it's very common to leave the edges the way they are, simply staining and applying a clear finish. We find this a lot in industrial furniture, in store fixtures, things of that type, where ApplePly is used not just for its structural properties, but also for its appearance. That contrasting colors of the two veneers makes for a very nice edging on store fixtures, on even desks in factories and things like that. So it's really common to find used that way. If we use it in the home, say for children's furniture, that appearance, again, we get that same, it's kind of an industrial look, but it's an attractive industrial look. It's not unattractive, and so people use it even for, say, dining room tables, just the way it actually is, okay? And actually, industry and store fixtures is where ApplePly got its start in this country. We still find it used more for that than for woodworking, but it's gaining ground in woodworking simply because of the ease of working with it, the quality, and the benefit of how it appears. And another thing we'll find that's very, very different about this is that both the face and reverse face of any sheet of ApplePly is very, very clean and well sanded. So you have a very smooth surface as opposed to regular construction plywood where, you know, we all know the grading system A, B, C, D, and you can hardly find A anywhere, and B is okay, but you're likely to have filled knot holes and cracks that you're going to deal with, whereas with the ApplePly you won't. Now this is a piece of half-inch ApplePly here, and this is the face side, and there are no open knot holes and no repairs in it at all. Okay, there are a few small knot holes, but they're closed knot holes and they look attractive. Now when I flip it over to the back side, we can see a few footballs here from where it's been patched, okay, but it's cleanly filled, it's sanded smooth, and the surface here is as good as the front side, except for the fact that those footballs. If we were to paint it, this side would be just as looking just as good as the face side, okay? So there's a lot of advantage to working with this material. Now it comes in thicknesses ranging from 1/4 inch up to 1.5 inches, and it's rather rare to find plywood, regular plywood, in thicknesses past 3/4 inch. Granted, it's a little harder to find those thicker thicknesses, but they're used again for those furniture and the store fixtures and things like that, so they are available. You can get in every 1/8 inch increment from 1/4 inch up to 3/4, and then from 3/4 on, it's every 1/4 inch increments. So you can get 5/8 of it in ApplePly, but you can't get 7/8. Okay, it really depends on what you want. Again, the additional plies are a real plus, both from a structural integrity and from an appearance viewpoint. Okay, as I mentioned, this 1/2 inch piece has 9 plies. A 3/4 inch piece would have 12 plies. Basically, the plies are each 1/16 of an inch thick. So that gives you a lot of plies in a piece of wood. The lack of voids is a real biggie, and that's one of the biggest advantages of this particular material. It's also made without any formaldehyde whatsoever. Now, the normal rosin that's used for putting the layers of typical plywood, construction grade plywood together, does contain some formaldehyde, okay? That's a concern, especially around children. Now, typically it's outgassed long before it reaches your workshop. But say it just recently came from the mill, it may not be fully outgassed. There is no formaldehyde whatsoever in the ApplePly, so there's no risk there. That makes it great for use in making children's furniture. You can make it without any risk to the children and not worrying about there being any risk for the children. However, there are some limitations to it. This is not designed for exterior use. It will not hold up in exterior use, even if it's well finished. I mean, there isn't a finish made that will protect it, maybe for a short period of time, but not for a long period of time. The other real drawback to it is just finding it. I've recently found that I can buy it at Rockler, and there's a Rockler store. It's about 150 miles from my home. No, I'm sorry, it's not that far. It's about an 1.5 hour drive from my home, and I happen to go by there about once a month anyway, so that's where I've started buying it from. makes it convenient. I can get it there, bring it home. It is more expensive than your construction grade plywood. It's about the price of buying inexpensive hardwood plywood. But remember, when you buy hardwood plywood, the only thing that's hardwood is that face veneer, okay? Now, in reality, this ApplePly is hardwood all the way through, even though it is a low density hardwood. It's hardwood all the way through, so it's better quality than even your typical hardwood plywood. And as I mentioned before, you can get it in different types. It's harder to find, but you can get it in different types of hardwood veneer finishes. So if you wanted to make a piece of furniture and you were going to use a hardwood plywood, say we're going to make a tabletop, a dining room table or a coffee table, and you're going to use a veneered plywood, hardwood plywood for the main part of the table with hardwood edging, you'd actually be better off using the ApplePly, and you really wouldn't be spending any more money. You might be spending a little less. Now, on the other hand, if your original intent was to use your El Cheapo, go to the lumberyard, buy some construction plywood and work with it, yeah, it's going to be more expensive. But you get what you pay for, right? So where would you want to use this product, okay? I've just recently started using it myself because of availability more than anything else. And where I basically use it is making shop fixtures. This is a miter shooting board that I made just recently in another video. And I decided to make it out of ApplePly because I want it to be very, very stable. You know, when we're talking about miter joints, 1/10 of a degree is a huge difference. We want that angle to be exact. And so I wanted the shooting board to be exact and to stay exact. So I decided to go ahead and make it out of ApplePly instead of standard plywood or even say 1x, okay? So that's where I use it. I've seen a lot of people use ApplePly to make shop furniture. It makes excellent shop furniture. You might want to use it if you've got a casual look to your decor in your home. Say your family room is a more casual room. You might want to use it to make furniture, getting into that industrial style, which is very, very popular these days. And you also might want to use it for children's furniture. Children's furniture a lot of times is made of plywood or some other sheet goods. You find it made of particle board, OSB, MDF. Probably nowadays more MDF than anything else. But making it out of ApplePly makes it stronger. It makes it more durable. And you've got the attractiveness of that banded edge, the striped edge that comes from the grain pattern in the wood. Excellent, excellent product. This is part of the direction that we can see that woodworking is going in the future as ApplePly becomes more readily available. As I said, get on that website. You can find out where you can get it. You can have it shipped in, and you can get it shipped directly from the manufacturer. Now, if you were wanting, say, some walnut veneered or maple veneered, you would probably have to get it shipped from the manufacturer. But that means also you're paying the shipping cost. So keep that in mind when you're looking at your projects. I have had wood shipped in here to my shop a number of times, and it gets a lot more expensive when you add that shipping on. It can be almost double the price. So that's a factor to consider when you're looking at using it. But then again, if you're going to get hardwood plywood shipped in, you're dealing with the same sort of problem.